Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Prometheus and watched the stars bend around them. The ship moved through space faster than light, something that still amazed her even after 20 years of space travel. The bridge buzzed with quiet activity as her crew worked at their stations. "Jump complete, Captain," announced Zix, the ship's navigator. The tall, blue-skinned Zephyrian's voice echoed inside Elena's mind, rather than through her ears. His people could speak with thoughts, which made communication much easier during dangerous missions. Elena nodded and looked at the main screen. Before them stretched a region of space near the galaxy's center that no one had explored before. Strange energy readings came from this area, and the Galactic Confederation had sent the Prometheus to investigate. "Kethvar, what do your sensors show?" Elena asked. The massive warrior turned from his station. Kethvar belonged to a species that looked like walking mountains made of dark stone. His people were known for their strength and their love of poetry, though most other species found this combination strange. "The readings are unlike anything in our databases, honored Captain," Kethvar said in his deep, rumbling voice. "The energy patterns suggest technology, but older than our oldest records." Dr. Nixara floated over from the science station. The Nexari scientist was made of living crystal that changed colors as she thought. Right now, she glowed a soft purple, which meant she was curious about something. "The quantum signatures are impossible according to our current understanding of physics," Dr. Nixara said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. "Whatever created these readings must have understood the universe in ways we do not." Elena felt excitement build in her chest. This was why she loved exploration. The unknown called to something deep inside every human, and she was no different. "Take us closer," she ordered, "but stay ready to jump away if things get dangerous." As the Prometheus moved forward, Elena thought about how much the galaxy had changed since humanity joined the Confederation. 200 years ago, humans had been alone on Earth, looking up at the stars and wondering if anyone else was out there. Then the Confederation found them and invited them to join the greatest alliance in galactic history. At first, the other species thought humans were just another young race that needed guidance. The Zephyrians had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. The Kethavar had built empires that lasted longer than human civilization. The Nexari understood science and technology that seemed like magic to human minds. But humans had something special. Where other species saw problems that could not be solved, humans found ways to solve them anyway. When the Vorthon plague threatened to destroy 3 star systems, human doctors found a cure that Confederation scientists said was impossible. When the trade routes through the spiral arm collapsed, human engineers rebuilt them using methods no one had tried before. "Captain, we're detecting structures," reported Ensign Tara from the sensor station. The young Aquarian's gills fluttered with excitement. Her people lived in the deep oceans of their homeworld and saw the universe differently than species that evolved on land. Elena looked at the main screen as the computer enhanced the image. What she saw made her breath catch in her throat. Massive structures hung in space, each one larger than a moon. They were clearly artificial, built by intelligence, but they looked older than anything Elena had ever seen. Dark metal surfaces, covered in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Energy flowed between the structures in streams of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. "How many are there?" Elena asked. "Scanning now," Tara replied. "I count 12 large structures. Wait, there are smaller ones too, hundreds of them, connected by energy streams." Dr. Nixara's crystal body flashed bright blue with amazement. "Captain, these structures are generating the quantum anomalies. They're creating small tears in space-time itself." "Are they dangerous?" Elena asked. "Unknown," the Nexari scientist replied. "The technology is beyond our understanding, but the structures appear to be dormant. Whatever built them, they have been sleeping for a very long time." Elena made her decision. "Launch probe. Drones, I want detailed scans of everything, and send a message back to Confederation Command. They need to know what we found." As the crew worked, Elena noticed something strange. Her non-human crew members kept looking at each other when they thought she wasn't watching. Quick glances that seemed to carry meaning, When she tried to catch their eyes, they looked away too fast. Zix, the Zephyrian navigator, had always been friendly with Elena. They had served together for 5 years, and she considered him a close friend. But now he seemed distant. When she tried to share a joke with him, he smiled, but his thoughts felt closed off. Kethvar was acting strange, too. The big warrior usually shared his poetry with Elena, reciting verses about honor and friendship. But today he was quiet, speaking only when duty required it. Even Dr. Nixara seemed different. The Nexari scientist usually glowed bright yellow when working with Elena, a sign of friendship and respect. Now her crystal body remained a neutral white, polite but distant. Probe data coming in now, Tara announced. The structures show signs of incredible age, but they're in perfect condition. The metal they're made of doesn't match anything in our databases. Elena studied the data flowing across her screen. The structures were definitely artificial, built by a species with technology far beyond anything the Confederation possessed. But something about them felt familiar, as if she had seen similar patterns before. Dr. Nixara, could these structures be part of a larger network? Elena asked. The Nexari scientist's body flashed orange, which meant she was thinking hard. It's possible, Captain. The energy patterns suggest these structures are connected to something much larger, perhaps a galaxy-wide network of some kind. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. A galaxy-wide network of ancient technology, built by a species that had vanished long ago. What had happened to the builders? And why were the structures still active after all this time? Captain, Zix said suddenly, his mental voice tight with concern. I'm picking up a priority message from Confederation Command. They want us to return immediately. Elena frowned. Did they say why? No, Captain. Just that we should return at once and bring all our data with us. Elena looked around the bridge at her crew. The non-human members were all watching her carefully, waiting to see what she would do. Something was definitely wrong, but she couldn't figure out what. Set course for home, she ordered finally. But continue scanning while we prepare to leave. I want to learn everything we can about these structures. As the Prometheus turned away from the ancient network, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something important. The structures had been waiting in space for millions of years. What were they waiting for? And why did she feel like they were connected to humanity somehow? Behind them, the ancient structures pulsed with their slow, steady heartbeat. Deep within their metal hearts, systems that had slept for eons began to wake up. They had sensed something they had not felt for a very long time. They had sensed minds that thought like their creators once did. Minds that refused to accept the impossible. Minds that belonged to a young species called humanity. The network was beginning to wake up, and the galaxy would never be the same. The emergency session on Zephyr Prime took place in a chamber carved from living crystal. Representatives from all 12 species of the Confederation sat in a circle, their forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes that would have been beautiful under normal circumstances. But these were not normal circumstances. High Chancellor Morden of the Kethvar spoke first, his stone-like face grave. The data from the human vessel Prometheus confirms our worst fears. The network has been found. A ripple of unease passed through the gathered representatives. The Aquarian delegate's gills fluttered nervously. The insect-like hive queen clicked her mandibles in distress. Even the normally calm Nexari representative flashed through several colors of anxiety. Are we certain these are the same structures? Asked the Vorthan delegate, her scaled face showing worry. Dr. Kexnil, the Confederation's chief historian, activated a holographic display. Ancient symbols and star maps filled the air above the circle. There is no doubt. These match the descriptions. In the Forbidden Archives perfectly. They are part of the Destroyer network. Silence fell over the chamber. Every species in the Confederation knew the story, though they rarely spoke of it. Millions of years ago, before any of their civilizations had learned to travel between stars, a great galactic empire had ruled most of the galaxy. The ancients, as they were called, had built wonders beyond imagination and lived in peace for countless ages. Then the destroyers came. The historical records were unclear about exactly what the destroyers were. Some said they were a disease that infected minds. Others believed they were a philosophy that spread like a virus. But everyone agreed on one thing. Wherever the destroyers went, civilizations collapsed. The pattern is unmistakable, Dr. Kexneal continued. The ancients welcomed the destroyers as friends and allies. They shared their technology and knowledge freely. The destroyers seemed helpful at first, solving problems and bringing new ideas. But slowly they changed everything. The holographic display showed images of ruined worlds and broken star systems. The destroyers did not conquer through force. They conquered through change. They convinced entire species to abandon their traditional ways. They made people believe that old wisdom was worthless and that only constant change mattered. In the end, the ancient empire tore itself apart from within. Chancellor Vareth of the Nexari pulsed a deep red, the color of alarm. And you believe humanity shows the same patterns as the destroyers? Consider the evidence, Dr. Kexneal replied. Since joining our confederation, humans have changed everything they touch. They refuse to accept that some problems cannot be solved. They ignore established protocols and create new methods that should not work, but somehow do. They influence other species to think like them. The Zephyrian representative, Elder Zartun, projected his thoughts to the entire group. My people have worked closely with humans for 2 centuries. We have observed their minds directly. They think in ways that disturb natural order. Where we see impossibility, they see challenge. Where we see stability, they see stagnation. Exactly, said Chancellor Morden. The humans call it innovation and progress. But we have seen this before. The ancient records describe the destroyers in identical terms. Queen Nethara of the Hive clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. But humans have helped us many times. They saved my people from the poison clouds of Kepler-7. They found cures for diseases that had plagued us for generations. Yes, Dr. Kexneal agreed. Just as the destroyers helped the ancients at first. That is how the pattern works. They solve immediate problems while creating deeper instabilities. They make people dependent on constant change instead of accepting natural limits. The Vorthan delegate hissed softly. I have watched human children play. They do not accept rules. When told something is impossible, they find ways to do it anyway. When given boundaries, they push against them until the boundaries break. And now they have found the network, Chancellor Morden said heavily. The same network the destroyers used to bring down the ancient empire. If we allow humans to study it, to understand it, history will repeat itself. Elder Zartun's mental voice carried deep sadness. I have served alongside Captain Vasquez for many years. She is honorable and brave. But honor and bravery make the corruption more dangerous, not less. The decision before us is clear, said Chancellor Vareth. We must act before the humans can activate the network, before they can spread their influence further through our civilization. What are you suggesting? Asked the Aquarian delegate, though her tone suggested she already knew. Dr. Kexneal deactivated the holographic display. The same solution our ancestors should have chosen. Complete isolation of the human species. No contact, no trade, no communication. We must quarantine them before the infection spreads. And if they refuse isolation? Queen Nethara asked. The chamber fell silent again. Everyone understood what the question really meant. Then we must choose between our survival and theirs, Chancellor Morden said finally. The ancients chose wrong. They showed mercy to the destroyers and lost everything. We will not make the same mistake. Over the following weeks, the plan took shape. It had to be subtle at first. Direct attack would only prove to the humans that they were right to resist authority. Instead, the Confederation would use the humans' own trust against them. Ships with human crews began experiencing unexplained technical failures during routine missions. Research stations with human scientists reported communication problems that isolated them from the broader network. Trade agreements with human colonies were quietly canceled for obscure legal reasons. Captain Elena Vasquez noticed the pattern first. She had always been good at seeing connections others missed. When the Prometheus was recalled from 3 consecutive missions due to scheduling conflicts, she knew something was wrong. When her requests for supplies were delayed or denied, she became suspicious. When her non-human crew members started avoiding her gaze, she became certain. The realization hit her during a routine staff meeting. Zix, her Zephyrian friend, was explaining why they had been assigned to patrol duty instead of exploration. His mental voice was carefully controlled, showing none of the warmth it used to carry. The Confederation Council believes our skills are better used in defensive operations, Zix said. There have been reports of pirates in the outer systems. Elena studied his blue face, looking for signs of deception. She had worked with Zephyrians long enough to read their subtle expressions. Zix was lying, and he knew she knew he was lying. What? Aren't you telling me? Elena asked directly. Zix's mental presence withdrew slightly. I do not understand your question, Captain. Dr. Nixara flashed yellow, then quickly returned to neutral white. Kethvar shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Even young Tara seemed nervous, her gills fluttering with anxiety. Elena felt a cold certainty settle in her stomach. Her own crew, people she had trusted with her life countless times, were keeping secrets from her. More than that, they were lying to her face. Meeting dismissed, Elena said quietly. As her crew filed out, Elena remained in her chair, thinking. If her own people were acting strangely, what did that mean for humanity as a whole? She activated her private communication system and tried to contact other human ships. Most of her calls went unanswered. The few that connected carried disturbing news. Captain Rodriguez of the New Horizon reported that his ship had been quarantined due to a medical emergency that his doctors couldn't identify. Commander Chen of Deep Space Station 7 said her facility had been evacuated because of structural concerns that the engineering teams couldn't find. Elena realized with growing horror that humanity was being isolated, systematically cut, off from the Confederation they had served faithfully for 2 centuries. But why? The answer came to her as she remembered the ancient structures they had discovered. The network. Something about finding those ruins had triggered this response from the other species. But what could be so frightening about old technology? Elena made her decision. If the Confederation wanted to isolate humanity, they must have a good reason. And if that reason involved the network, she needed to understand what they were really dealing with. The Prometheus changed course quietly, slipping away from its assigned patrol route. Elena had spent 20 years exploring the galaxy, and she knew how to move without being detected. Whatever secrets the network held, she was going to find them. Behind her, emergency messages flashed between Confederation ships. The human vessel was moving toward the restricted zone. The plan would have to be accelerated. The betrayal was about to begin in earnest. Elena watched Earth burn from the bridge of her damaged ship. The Prometheus hung dead in space, its engines destroyed by weapons that had once protected humanity's homeworld. On the main screen, Confederation warships surrounded the blue planet, like vultures around a dying animal. How many ships do they have? Elena asked quietly. Lieutenant Martinez, one of the few human crew members left alive, checked his instruments with shaking hands. At least 200, Captain. Maybe more. Every species in the Confederation sent ships. Elena closed her eyes and tried to process what had happened. 3 weeks ago, the Confederation had been humanity's greatest ally. Now they were methodically destroying every human world, station, and ship they could find. The attack had come without warning. Elena had been trying to return to the network structures when Confederation forces intercepted her ship, but instead of escorting her back to base, they had opened fire. Only quick thinking and desperate flying had kept the Prometheus from being destroyed instantly. The communication channel crackled, and Chancellor Morden's stone face appeared on the screen. Behind him, Elena could see the bridge of a massive Kethvar battleship. Captain Vasquez, the alien leader said in his deep, rumbling voice, "You will surrender your vessel and submit to quarantine. This is your final warning." Quarantine for what? Elena demanded. What crime have we committed? What law have we broken? Morden's expression didn't change. You exist. That is crime enough. The communication ended, leaving Elena staring at a blank screen. Around her, the bridge crew waited for orders. Most were young humans who had never seen real combat. They looked to her for answers she didn't have. "Captain," called out Ensign Park from the sensor station. "I'm detecting escape pods launching from Earth, thousands of them. Some are making it past the blockade." Elena felt a small spark of hope. If humans were escaping, they might survive this madness, but escape to where? The Confederation controlled every habitable system in this region of the galaxy. "Set course for the outer rim," Elena ordered. "We'll try to link up with other survivors." The Prometheus limped through space, its damaged engines barely able to maintain life support. Elena used every trick she had learned in 20 years of space travel to avoid detection. She took them through asteroid fields and nebulae, places where Confederation sensors couldn't track them easily. It took 6 days to reach the abandoned mining station at Kepler 442. Elena had hoped to find other human ships there, and she wasn't. Disappointed. Floating around the old station were 12 vessels of various sizes, all showing battle damage. Elena recognized several of the ships. The research vessel Darwin, commanded by Dr. Sarah Kim. The merchant freighter Golden Dawn, whose captain had once shared drinks with Elena on a space station. The military escort Defiant, badly damaged but still flying. Captain Torres of the Defiant met Elena in the station's main docking bay. The older man's face looked like he had aged 10 years in the past week. "How many ships did you lose?" Elena asked. 17, Torres replied grimly. "They hit us at Proxima Station, didn't even give us time to surrender, just started shooting." He paused, staring at the deck. "My daughter was on the Hope. I haven't heard from her since the attack began." Elena put a hand on his shoulder. "We'll find her. We'll find all the survivors." But even as she said the words, Elena knew how difficult that would be. The Confederation had spent 2 centuries learning everything about human technology and tactics. They knew every human world, every trade route, every hiding place. Humanity was outnumbered thousands to 1 by enemies who understood them better than they understood themselves. Dr. Kim called a meeting in the station's conference room. The dozen surviving captains gathered around a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red markers indicated known Confederation positions. The few green dots representing human survivors looked pathetically small in comparison. "The situation is hopeless," Dr. Kim said bluntly. "We have maybe 50 ships left in the entire galaxy. They have 50,000. We can't fight them, and we can't hide from them forever." "So we surrender?" asked Captain Walsh of the Golden Dawn. "Let them finish what they started?" "No," Elena said firmly. "We do what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds. We change the rules." Torres looked skeptical. "What are you thinking?" Elena activated her personal datapad and projected new information onto the display. "Before the attack, I was investigating the ancient network structures. I think they're the key to understanding why the Confederation turned against us." "You think some old ruins caused this?" Dr. Kim asked. "I think the Confederation is afraid of what we might do with that technology," Elena replied. "Afraid enough to commit genocide to stop us." Elena shared the data she had gathered about the network. The structures were clearly designed to connect across vast distances, forming a communication and transportation system that spanned the entire galaxy. But they had been dormant for millions of years, waiting for something to activate them. "The energy patterns are keyed to specific neural frequencies," Elena explained. "Frequencies that match human brain activity." Captain Torres leaned forward. "You're saying these things were built for us? Not for us specifically, but for minds that think like ours. Minds that refuse to accept limitations. The Confederation knows this, and they're terrified of what it means." Dr. Kim studied the data carefully. "If you're right, and we could activate this network, what then?" "We're still outnumbered and outgunned," Elena smiled grimly. "Then we fight like humans instead of fighting like them." Over the next few days, Elena's plan took shape. The surviving human ships would split into small groups and head for different parts of the network. They would use guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks, and everything the Confederation didn't expect from a civilized species. But more importantly, they would try to activate the ancient technology. Elena was convinced that the network held secrets that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The Confederation's ancestors had fought and defeated the builders of the network. But that was millions of years ago, and humanity was not the same as the ancient destroyers. The first test came at the Vega system. Elena led 3 ships in an attack on a Confederation supply convoy. Instead of engaging in direct combat, they disabled the enemy ships and stole their cargo. When reinforcements arrived, the human ships had vanished into a nearby nebula. The attack itself wasn't important. What mattered was the message it sent. Humanity wasn't going to roll over and die quietly. They were going to make the Confederation pay for every world, every life, every act of betrayal. But Elena's real target was the network structure hidden in the Vega system's asteroid belt. While her ships kept the Confederation forces busy, she took a small team to investigate the ancient installation. The structure was larger up close than Elena had imagined. Dark metal surfaces covered in patterns that seemed to shift when she wasn't looking directly at them. Energy flowed through channels carved into the hull, pulsing like a slow heartbeat. "Scans show the interior is pressurized," reported Lieutenant Martinez. "Atmosphere is breathable, but there are unusual energy readings throughout the structure." Elena made her decision. "I'm going inside." "Captain, that's not safe," Martinez protested. "Nothing about this situation is safe," Elena replied. "But if this technology can help us save our people, I have to try." Elena put on her environmental suit and entered the airlock. The corridor beyond was filled with soft blue light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Strange symbols covered every surface, glowing brighter as she approached. At the center of the structure, Elena found what she was looking for: a circular chamber filled with floating displays and control surfaces that responded to her presence. As she reached out to touch one of the displays, the entire network awakened. Light flowed through the corridors like liquid fire. The symbols on the walls blazed with brilliant illumination. And somewhere in the depths of the ancient technology, something that had been sleeping for millions of years opened its eyes and looked at Elena with interest. "Hello," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "We have been waiting for you." Elena felt her heart racing. "Who are you?" "We are what remains of those who built this network. We are the memory of a civilization that refused to accept limits. And you, little one, are proof that such minds still exist in this galaxy." Elena realized that everything was about to change. The Confederation had feared what humanity might become. But they had never imagined what humanity might awaken. The real war was just beginning. The voice in Elena's mind belonged to something vast and ancient. As she stood in the network's control chamber, information flowed into her consciousness like water rushing through a broken dam. Images of a civilization that had once spanned the galaxy. Memories of beings who had refused to accept that some things were impossible. "Your people call us the Destroyers," the voice said, with something that might have been amusement. "But we were builders. We built this network to connect every thinking mind in the galaxy, to share knowledge and dreams across the stars." Elena struggled to process the flood of information. "Then why did the Confederation records say you destroyed everything?" "Because we changed everything," the voice replied. "The empire that existed before us was built on fear and control, rigid hierarchies that never changed, rules that could never be questioned. We offered them freedom, and they called it destruction." The chamber around Elena pulsed with growing energy. Displays showed star maps across the entire galaxy, with thousands of network nodes lighting up one by one. The ancient system was waking up after millions of years of sleep. "The current Confederation is built on the same foundations as the old empire," the voice continued. "They fear change because change threatens their power. When they discovered that your species thinks like ours once did, they decided to eliminate you rather than risk transformation." Elena felt anger building in her chest. They committed genocide because they were afraid of losing control? "Fear makes people do terrible things," the voice said sadly. But fear also makes them predictable. Watch. The displays around Elena showed what was happening throughout the galaxy. Confederation fleets were mobilizing everywhere, hunting down the remaining human survivors with desperate intensity. But something else was happening too. The network nodes were awakening, and their activation was causing problems. On Zephyr, Prime, the planetary defense grid had suddenly gone offline. The Zephyrians depended on ancient technology for their shields, technology that was built on top of dormant network foundations. When the network woke up, it reclaimed what belonged to it. The same thing was happening across dozens of star systems. Confederation worlds that had built their civilizations on or near network nodes were experiencing massive system failures. Transportation networks collapsed. Communication arrays went dark. Power grids fluctuated wildly. You built your network under their cities? Elena asked. We built first, the voice corrected. They built on top of us over millions of years. They never realized their entire civilization rested on foundations they didn't understand. Now those foundations are awakening. Elena watched the chaos spreading through Confederation space and felt a mix of satisfaction and horror. The species that had betrayed humanity were experiencing the same terror that human civilians had faced during the attacks. Can you stop this? Elena asked. The awakening, I mean. Innocent people are dying. We could, the voice admitted. But should we? Your people are being hunted to extinction. Why should we show mercy to those who show you none? Elena thought about Captain Torres and his missing daughter, about the thousands of humans who had died in the surprise attacks, about Earth burning while Confederation ships watched. Part of her wanted to let the ancient intelligence destroy their enemies completely, but another part of her, the part that made her human, couldn't accept that answer. Because that's not who we are, Elena said finally. Humans don't win by becoming monsters. We win by being better than our enemies. The chamber fell silent for a long moment. When the voice spoke again, it sounded surprised. Even after what they have done to you? Especially after what they've done to us, Elena replied. If we respond to genocide with genocide, we become the destroyers they said we were. Interesting, the voice mused. Your predecessor species was not so forgiving. They chose to fight fire with fire, and both sides burned. Perhaps that is why they failed where you might succeed. Elena felt the network's attention focusing on her more intensely. What do you mean, succeed? We offer you a choice, Elena Vasquez of the species called human. We can help you save your people, but the cost will be high. The galaxy will change, whether the Confederation wants it to or not. The question is whether that change comes through cooperation or catastrophe. Before Elena could respond, her communication device crackled with an urgent message from Lieutenant Martinez. Captain, we've got company. Confederation battle fleet just jumped in system. They're demanding we surrender. Elena looked at the displays showing the awakening network. Across the galaxy, the ancient system was coming online node by node. Each activation caused more chaos in Confederation space, and they were starting to realize what was happening. They're going to try to destroy the network, Elena realized. They'd rather see the galaxy burn than lose control. Yes, the voice agreed. And they have weapons powerful enough to do it. Weapons left over from the last war between order and change. Elena made her decision. What do I have to do? Accept the bond. Become our partner in this galaxy. Help us guide the transformation that is coming. Elena felt something reaching out to her from the ancient intelligence, offering a connection deeper than anything she had ever experienced. She would retain her humanity, her free will, but she would also carry the knowledge and purpose of a civilization that had once tried to free the galaxy from stagnation. Will this save my people? Elena asked. It will save everyone who deserves saving, the voice replied. But it will also change them. Change everything. Are you prepared for that responsibility? Elena thought about the human survivors scattered across the galaxy, hiding and running from enemies that had once been friends. She thought about Earth under blockade and the thousands of people who had already died. She thought about the choice between fighting to preserve the old ways or embracing something new and uncertain. "I accept," Elena said. The bond formed instantly, and Elena gasped as her consciousness expanded. She was still herself, but she was also connected to something vast and ancient and wise. Knowledge flowed into her mind, showing her how the network really worked and what it could do. "Captain." Martinez's voice was urgent on the communicator. "They're charging weapons. We need to get out of here." But Elena wasn't worried anymore. She reached out through the network and felt the other nodes responding to her will. The ancient system had been designed to be controlled by minds that thought like hers, and now she understood why. The Confederation battle fleet opened fire on the network node, their weapons blazing with enough energy to crack a moon. But instead of destroying the ancient structure, their attacks were absorbed and redirected. Energy flowed through the network's connections, powering systems that had been dormant for millions of years. Across the galaxy, every network node blazed to life. Simultaneously, the awakening was complete. On the bridge of his flagship, Chancellor Morden watched in horror as his fleet's weapons fed power into the very system he was trying to destroy. "All ships, cease fire," he ordered. "We're making it stronger." But it was too late. The network was fully active now, and it was no longer hiding. Every star system in the galaxy could see the energy streams flowing between ancient nodes. The secret foundation of galactic civilization was revealed, and everyone realized how dependent they had become on technology they didn't understand. Elena felt the network's attention turn toward the Confederation worlds. With a thought, she could shut down every system that relied on network infrastructure. She could plunge entire civilizations into darkness and chaos. She could give humanity the ultimate victory by destroying their enemies completely. Instead, she made a different choice. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Earthship Prometheus," she broadcast on all frequencies across the galaxy. "I speak for humanity and for the ancient intelligence that built the network you all depend on. We offer you one chance to end this war honorably." The response came quickly from Chancellor Morden. "We do not negotiate with destroyers." "Then you've made your choice," Elena replied sadly. "But understand this. We're not the destroyers. We're the builders of what comes next, and we're going to build it whether you help us or not." Elena reached out through the network and began the transformation. Not the violent overthrow that the Confederation feared, but something subtler and more profound. She began changing the rules that governed galactic civilization itself. The storm was about to break, and when it passed, nothing would ever be the same. 3 months after the network awakened, Elena stood in the rebuilt command center of what had once been Kepler Station. Through the massive viewport, she could see ships from a dozen different species working together to construct something that had never existed before, a truly cooperative galactic government. The transformation hadn't been gentle. When the Confederation refused Elena's offer of cooperation, the network had begun systematically shutting down the infrastructure that held their rigid civilization together. Faster-than-light travel became unreliable. Communication networks failed. Power grids collapsed on worlds that had forgotten how to generate energy without network assistance. Within weeks, the mighty Confederation was reduced to isolated worlds struggling to survive. Billions died not from human weapons, but from the collapse of systems they had taken for granted. The irony wasn't lost on Elena that the species who had tried to commit genocide against humanity now faced the same threat themselves. But Elena had kept her word about being builders rather than destroyers. Even as the Confederation crumbled, human ships arrived at desperate worlds offering aid. Food, medicine, and technical assistance flowed from the survivors the galaxy had tried to eliminate to the civilizations that had betrayed them. Not everyone accepted the help at first. Pride and fear ran deep among the older species. Chancellor Morden had refused all offers of assistance and watched his homeworld struggle in darkness rather than accept aid from humans. Other leaders made different choices. "The Aquarian delegation has arrived," reported Commander Sarah Chen, Elena's new second-in-command. Chen had been rescued from the ruins of Deep Space Station 7 and had proven invaluable in organizing the relief efforts. Elena nodded and walked to the docking bay, where the Aquarian ship had just landed. Elder Mortai emerged from the vessel, her gills fluttering with nervousness. Elena remembered when Aquarian ships had participated in the attacks on human colonies. Now their representative came seeking help. "Captain Vasquez," Elder Mortai said formally, "I come to request aid for my people. Our water reclamation systems have failed and we cannot repair them without network assistance." Elena studied the alien leader's face. Behind the formal words, she could see genuine desperation. The Aquarians were an ocean-dwelling species, and without their environmental systems, their worlds would become uninhabitable within months. "Your people helped hunt mine to extinction," Elena said quietly. "Why should I save them?" Elder Mortai's gills drooped with shame. "Because you are better than we were. Because you offer mercy where we showed none." She paused, struggling with the words. "Because we were wrong to fear you, and we're asking for a chance to learn better." Elena felt the network's ancient intelligence watching through her eyes, curious to see what choice she would make. The old civilization had faced similar moments, and their responses had shaped the galaxy's history. Now humanity faced the same test. "We'll help," Elena said finally, "but not for free. In exchange, we want Aquarian engineers to join our reconstruction teams. We want your people to work alongside humans and other species who've chosen cooperation over isolation." Elder Mortai's relief was visible. "Agreed. We'll do whatever is necessary." As the Aquarian leader left to organize her people's integration into the new galactic community, Elena reflected on how much had changed. The old Confederation had been built on fear and rigid hierarchy. Species were kept separate, following ancient rules about who could interact with whom. Change was discouraged, and innovation was viewed with suspicion. The new galaxy Elena was helping to build operated on different principles. Species worked together based on mutual benefit rather than ancient treaties. Problems were solved by combining different perspectives rather than following established procedures. Most importantly, change was embraced as natural and necessary. "Elena," came the ancient voice in her mind, "the Kethvar delegation wishes to speak with you." Elena walked to the main conference room where Chancellor Morden waited. The massive stone-like being looked older than when she had last seen him, as if the weight of his choices had aged him beyond his years. "I come to surrender," Morden said without preamble. "My people are dying and my pride is worth less than their lives." Elena gestured to a chair designed for his species. "This isn't about surrender. It's about choosing to be part of something new." Morden sat heavily, his stone-like features showing exhaustion. "You could have destroyed us completely when the network awakened. Why didn't you?" "Because destroying you wouldn't have solved anything," Elena replied. "The old system failed because it was based on fear and control. If we had responded with more fear and control, we would have just created the same problems all over again." The ancient intelligence whispered in Elena's mind, sharing memories of similar conversations from millions of years ago. The previous attempt at galactic transformation had failed, because both sides had chosen violence over understanding. Humanity was being given a chance to succeed where their predecessors had failed. "What happens now?" Morden asked. Elena activated a holographic display showing the new galactic community taking shape. Dozens of species were working together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. Joint research stations explored scientific questions that no single species could answer alone. Mixed crews on exploration vessels pushed into regions of space that had been forbidden under Confederation law. "We build something better," Elena said. "Not a government that rules through force, but a community that grows through cooperation. Species join because they want to be part of something larger than themselves, not because they're forced to submit." Morden studied the display with interest. "And those who choose not to join?" "They're left alone," Elena replied. "No forced conversion, no mandatory participation. But they also don't get the benefits of membership. No access to network transportation, no shared technology, no protection from the community. Several species had already made that choice. The Zephyrians had retreated to their homeworld and cut off all contact with the outside galaxy. A few other civilizations had chosen isolation over integration. Elena respected their decision, even if she thought it was short-sighted. "I speak for the Kethvar people," Morden said formally. "We request membership in this new community. We offer our strength and our knowledge in exchange for partnership and redemption." Elena smiled and extended her hand. When Morden took it in his massive stone grip, she felt the network's approval flowing through the connection. Over the following months, the new galactic community continued to grow. Former enemies became partners in reconstruction efforts. Species that had barely communicated for millennia began sharing knowledge and culture. The rigid boundaries that had defined galactic civilization for millions of years started to dissolve. Elena found herself at the center of it all, serving as both humanity's representative and the network's partner. The ancient intelligence guided her when she asked for advice, but the choices were always hers to make. It was a heavy responsibility, but one she carried gladly. Captain Torres had been reunited with his daughter, who had survived the destruction of her ship and spent weeks hiding in an asteroid field. Dr. Kim was leading joint research teams investigating the full extent of the network's capabilities. Lieutenant Martinez had been promoted to captain and commanded his own ship in the exploration fleet. Humanity was no longer fighting for survival. They were building the future. "The long-range sensors have detected something interesting," Commander Chen reported as Elena reviewed the day's reports. "It looks like a signal from the Andromeda Galaxy. Someone over there is trying to communicate." Elena felt the network's ancient presence stir with excitement. Another galaxy with thinking beings. That's unprecedented in our experience. Elena smiled as she considered the implications. The galaxy they had known was just the beginning. There were other communities of intelligent species out there, other civilizations that might welcome contact and cooperation. The universe was larger and more wonderful than anyone had imagined. "Prepare a response," Elena ordered. "Let them know they're not alone, and start planning for a very long journey." As Elena looked out at the stars, she thought about the path that had brought humanity to this point. They had been betrayed by allies who feared change. They had nearly been destroyed by enemies who preferred stagnation to growth. But they had survived, and more than that, they had chosen to build rather than destroy. The galaxy was changing, becoming something new and strange and wonderful. It would be dangerous and challenging, full of problems that no one had solved before. But it would also be alive with possibilities that the old rigid system had never allowed. Elena's final log entry that day was simple. "They feared we would destroy their galaxy. They were right, but they never asked what we would build in its place." Outside her window, ships from 20 different species worked together under the light of alien stars, building a future that no single species could have imagined alone. The galaxy belonged to all of them now, and together they would take it to the stars.